Inter Miami are your 2025 MLS Cup champions. No, this is not a dream. This is real life. Yes, Inter Miami are champions of Major League Soccer. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show otherwise known as Miami Total Football Radio. The show, yes, it's me, Franco Panizo, once again. By my lonesome. And no, it's not because Inter Miami won. Andrea said she could do it tomorrow. I didn't want to wait until tomorrow. Felt like today was the day. Tomorrow there will be other news that we will surely want to talk about. But I felt like the game itself, the final itself, plus Inter Miami being crowned champions, deserved a show all to itself. So it's just me. Just me. Give us a like, a comment, a share, subscribe. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, especially if you're in a good mood after Inter Miami's win. There's a lot to cover here. There's a lot of sound bites, a lot of video clips. Again, I'm Franco Panizo, your usual co-host. You heard a lot from me last week. We won't do the same this week. We won't have a show every day, but we might have more than one. But yes, we're putting a bow on this playoff run for Inter Miami. We're putting a bow on the 2025 season for Lionel Messi and the team. They were crowned champions this past Saturday afternoon at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale in front of a rocking crowd, clad in pink, black, some baby blue for that third jersey that they wore once upon a time. Alfonso El Avila, 1307. Vamos, campeones de la MLS bicep emoji, which would translate to let's go champions, or MLS champions. Sean Callahan, 8080 says, got the star, and they can't take that away. That is correct. Next year, you'll be able to buy a brand new jersey, which will probably be pretty pricey, but it will come with the cool little detail of the star above the crest, above the badge. So something to look forward to. We will talk about the future of Inter Miami, but we are going to first talk about the present, and that is that Inter Miami are champions. Look, I don't even wear pink on the show normally because I try to not wear colors of the team I'm covering and who they're playing against. This is a Miami Total Football shirt. I do wear this on occasion, but normally not for the podcast. Special occasion. Inter Miami are champions. We'll rock the pink. Still neutral, but we'll rock the pink in a nod to, well, obviously, the team we cover and the MLS Cup champions. Before we get into the game, before we get into our thoughts, before I get to the analysis and see what you guys thought of the game and how it played out, I want to share the trophy celebration from my vantage point up in the press box. Obviously, I don't have the broadcasting rights. I don't have the Apple rights, so I can't share with you that footage. Otherwise, copyright strike will come and get me. But I can share with you the footage that I took from inside the venue on Tuesday afternoon. You will see Lionel Messi and his teammates celebrating as they raise the trophy in front of their supporters, in front of La Familia. The black, white, and gold confetti that I later got an up-close look at on the field, grabbed it, threw it in the air. Yeah, you're going to see all of that good stuff. So let's take a look.
I feel like this should be like simple. It's great. Yeah. I like that we are. I've never seen so many fireworks.
You can hear the oh chant in the background there at the end. The atmosphere was electric. I do really like that decision from Major League Soccer. It's been a long-standing one at this point, but having the home team, having the team with the best record serve as the home team of the final, it adds a nice element to it. It adds a nice touch to it. Previously, when I was starting my journalistic career, at that point, MLS was transitioning from neutral venues. So they were doing it very Super Bowl-like, where they would just have it in a random city that was pre-selected. And the turnouts weren't always great, especially when there were cold cities, far away from the two teams that were participating. Didn't make for a nice TV spectacle. So therefore they changed it. I believe in 2011 was the first year, or maybe it was 2012, and 2011 just happened by coincidence. Anyway, something along those lines. 2011, 2012, they made the decision to, I think it's 2012, they made the decision to have the home team, or the team with the best record in the final, host the final. Obviously makes for a lot of last minute planning, a lot of contingencies. Not the easiest for fans, especially those that are traveling, but yeah, even for those at home, you got to figure everything out. Super short notice, but that is how it goes. But it does add to the ambiance, the atmosphere, el ambiente del estadio. All right. So Inter Miami are MLS Cup champions thanks to a 3-1 victory over the Vancouver Whitecaps. It's an own goal, and then finishes from Rodrigo de Paul and Tadeo Allende. Tadeo Allende breaks the record for most goals in the playoffs. He finished with 9 on the year. We'll talk about him a little later on. We, of course, will get to different players: Messi, Busquets, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, Rodrigo de Paul. We'll talk about Ian Frey, Noah Allen. We're going to talk about a lot of the pieces here that allowed this special day, allowed this special moment, allowed history to be made here in South Florida. One of the better days, if not maybe the best day in domestic soccer, club soccer in South Florida. Because seeing Messi obviously raise the trophy is the image you guys wanted. It's the image Inter Miami wanted. And secretly probably some MLS executives wanted. And it was a nice moment. The game, I thought, was good, even if it wasn't littered with chances. I thought it was intense. I thought the ebbs and flows, los altos y bajos for both teams, made for a nice spectacle from a neutral's perspective. Definitely live and in the moment. If you're an Inter Miami fan, you were probably obviously in ecstasy at the end, but along the way probably had your cheeks clenched a little bit. You're probably biting your nails, comiéndote las uñas, because it did get a little nervy for them late in the first half, early in the second half. This was the starting lineup from Javier Mascherano. It was the usual 4-3-3. There were no surprises, really. And Tadeo Allende did get the start after, he missed practice on the Thursday due to a fever. So no issue there. Rocco Rios Nova in goal. Your right back, Ian Frey, got the start over Chelo Weigand. Center back partnership, same one that we've seen all playoffs. Maximiliano Peluca Falcon partnering Noah Allen. Left back, Jordi Alba. Midfield, 3. Sergio Busquets in the middle. Rodrigo de Paul and Baltasar Rodriguez on either side of him. Up top, Lionel Messi, your focal point, your false 9. And on the wings, Tadeo Allende on the right, Matteo Toto Silvetti on the left. Pretty much what anybody would have pretty much predicted. So no surprises from Javier Mascherano there, which we'll also talk about Javier Mascherano on this show. And Inter Miami gets an early goal in this one. They get a dream start to the final. And thanks to an own goal that was in part set up by Lionel Messi, because Messi starts the sequence with a good dribble. He's coming inside from pretty much the right flank near midfield. Nice dribble to keep possession. Then he flicks the ball over the top into space for Tadeo Allende. And Tadeo Allende obviously has the wheels to push into the final third. Toto Silvetti was racing in at the back post. Tadeo Allende had the low ball, easy low ball. He just had to play to him. He attempts to do so, but it is intercepted. But it is intercepted by the Vancouver Whitecaps and pushed into the back of the net. So 1-0 Inter Miami early. You thought Inter Miami might get another one. You thought they might win, especially when Lionel Messi hit pulled off the header that ended up going wide of the frame later in the game. But the Vancouver Whitecaps, listen, man, credit to them because it's not easy to pin Inter Miami. It's easier to exploit them in transition on counterattacks with space in behind the high defensive line. But they had Inter Miami pinned in their defensive third for a good stretch of the game. The last 10 minutes or so of the first half and the first 15 to 20 in the second half. Vancouver makes up for Edier Ocampo's own goal with an Ali Ahmed finish at the hour mark in the 60th minute, minuto 60. The Vancouver Whitecaps tie it in front of a good traveling supporters. I won't say supporters group. Good traveling contingent of Whitecaps fans. Now I will share this anecdote with you guys from experience. This was my 11th MLS Cup. While there are real traveling fans from Vancouver, some people that fill up those seats are also just team employees. So they also help fill in the space. And obviously they're cheering their team on just the same, but they're employees of the opposing team. And MLS does that helps organize that with the teams for the better spectacle on the TV, right? Because it looked impressive. Like, there's like 2,000 something fans from Vancouver in two sections in the South Stand. But there you go. So Vancouver ties it. They almost take the lead. A double post saves Inter Miami's blushes. I would call it winner's luck, champion's luck, divine intervention, suerte de campeón, because the ball bounced Inter Miami's way there. They could have easily not bounced their way. They could have been under it 2-1. You probably still don't count them out because you have Messi, and with the onus on you to push and find the game, Messi can turn it on easily. But they didn't. That never happened. It stayed 1-1. I didn't like Javier Mascherano's. Hold on, I'll say it like this because I do want to be fair and as well-rounded as possible. I liked that he wasn't reactive. Like, he saw that the control of the game was slipping away from Inter Miami, as we all did. And he was proactive in trying to make a substitution in the moment to try to tweak things. I just didn't like the substitution he made to try to address that. Because he brings in, if I'm not mistaken, Telasco Segovia for Baltasar Rodriguez, who was on a yellow. But I thought that hurt Inter Miami. Thought that hurt Inter Miami big time. Because Telasco Segovia is someone that tiene generación de juego, posesión, someone with possession, someone that's able to generate play, combine, move the ball forward, which are good characteristics. But the game clearly was showing that Inter Miami was on the defensive. And you took out Baltasar Rodriguez, who puts in a lot of work defensively. Velasco Segovia is not necessarily that same type of player. Doesn't have necessarily the same work rate or the ability to combat and fight for 50-50s. So I thought by bringing in Velasco Segovia, they hurt themselves even more defensively. And if you look at the play that leads into the double post, they blow by Velasco Segovia easily, way too easily. That could have been massively costly, massively. But again, the soccer heavens said, not today. This is Inter Miami's day. This is Lionel Messi's MLS coronation. Messi helps make it happen. He picks the pocket. I'm blanking on which Vancouver Whitecaps player it was. I think it was Cubas. Yes, it was Cubas. Andres Cubas, who I don't know what Andres Cubas was thinking there. Way too naive to try to dribble by Messi. I get maybe he didn't see a passing option, but sloppy and naive to try to get by Messi on the dribble there, even though he was trying to go horizontally or even backwards. Needed to do something with more conviction. Seemed like he got kind of stuck between two minds. Well, Messi, with all the savviness that he has, la jerarquía, the know-how, picks Cubas' pocket, robs him of the ball, dribbles forward, plays a nice little neat, intelligent through pass to a streaking Rodrigo de Paul, and Rodrigo de Paul finishes con la clase de un 9. He finishes like a number 9, the way he tucked the ball into the far bottom corner. 2-1. Inter Miami is jumping up and down. Mascherano, you've seen, I'm sure, his reaction from the broadcast. Very effusive, ecstatic, pretty much a giant roar, essentially, from El Jefecito, which makes sense. The game was tense. A good moment for Inter Miami. From there, Vancouver pushed and pushed, but they never really had another clear-cut chance like they did on the one that hit the double post. Inter Miami holds on, and late in the game, Jordi Alba pings a ball forward to his old comrade, his old teammate. Messi brings the ball down with his chest, as if he had a pillow on his chest, just controls it with his chest super smoothly, and then flicks a ball over the top to a streaking Tadeo Allende, who makes no mistake with his chance, gets it into the back of the net with a slow roller. But that goal came in stoppage time. 90th plus 6. There was 7 minutes of stoppage time. That sealed it. You knew that it was over at that point. You knew Inter Miami was going to get to the finish line. They were going to become champions. So that just sent everyone into a frenzy. Even though the game wasn't officially over, just bedlam, ecstasy for everybody. Mascherano even ran onto the field and embraced a very emotional Jordi Alba, who was, on the ground covering his face. And there was still another minute or so to play. So, but it's understandable, right? It's understandable. It's a final. The final few seconds are played. The full-time whistle is blown. Inter Miami are your 2025 champions. Los campeones de la MLS en el 2025. And it was deserved because they peaked at the absolute best time. There was no better team than them in the playoffs from the moment that Nashville SC made that formal complaint. And that is a big part of all the success, because we've talked about it. Suarez probably isn't getting benched, if not for that. But that does happen. That is, again, maybe the soccer heavens shining down on Messi and Inter Miami and allowing them to find the best formula for success. And they won from that point forward every game by multiple goals. And the Vancouver Whitecaps put up a hell of a fight. Hell of a fight. Again, not easy to pin Inter Miami back at home with the players that they have. And Vancouver did that for a good stretch of the match. Not for some naivety, not for some misfortune. Maybe the game turns out differently for Vancouver. But it doesn't. It's Inter Miami's day to celebrate. Let's listen to Javier Mascherano talking about winning the MLS Cup, as well as also referencing the luck factor, because Inter Miami did have their doses of luck. And look, it's not a criticism. It's just an observation, as Mascherano shares it as well. Sometimes you need to have that luck. And when that luck is on your side, sometimes that points to you being the winner because you got the break, you got the bounce. Let's listen to Mascherano here.
Partido muy difícil. Sabíamos que nos enfrentábamos a un gran rival. Pudimos ponernos por delante en el marcador. Pero nos costó, sobre todo después de los 25, 30 minutos. Ellos empezaron a presionar. Quizás tuvimos alguna que otra oportunidad como para poder hacer, sobre todo en los primeros 30 minutos, poder adelantarnos por un gol más en el marcador. No lo terminamos haciendo. En el segundo tiempo nos costó. Ellos, la realidad es que salvo la de Leo de cabeza, nos fueron hundiendo. Y creo que después del segundo gol ahí sí empezamos a controlar mucho, pero bueno, tuvimos esa cuota de suerte en la jugada que pegan los dos palos, necesaria para ser campeón. Dicho esto, creo que si había un equipo que merecía terminar de esta manera, éramos nosotros. Y lo digo sin ningún tipo de tapujos porque fuimos el equipo que mejor compitió a lo largo de toda la temporada. Nos quedamos en la puerta de la Champions, nos quedamos en la puerta de la League Cup, competimos como nadie en el Mundial de Clubes y creo que fuimos el mejor equipo que hizo los playoffs. Es decir, hoy nos enfrentamos a un gran equipo, pero que había ganado 2 eliminatorias a los penales. Nosotros habíamos ganado todos nuestros partidos. Así que felicitar a los jugadores por el esfuerzo, por levantarse en los momentos duros, por saber convivir con los momentos duros y sobre todo agradecérselo, ¿no? Agradecerle estos 11 meses de trabajo donde más allá de parte nuestra del cuerpo técnico, de virtudes y defectos, siempre siguieron confiando hasta el final.
You can hear, I think you can hear, if you have it loud enough, you can hear the team in the background in the locker room next to the press conference room. Walls are thin there at Chase Stadium. You can hear them celebrating loudly, and with all good reason, of course, which is nice. It's a nice moment. This was a soccer celebration in South Florida for the team. Mascherano touched on a lot of things. I translated, paraphrased beforehand. He does add that he thinks the team was the most deserving of that luck and of becoming champions because he thought they were the most consistent over the course of the year, that they got to final or decisive moments in practically all their competitions aside from the Club World Cup. Whether you agree with that, you can make the argument Vancouver maybe was better in that regard. Yeah, maybe they don't get out of the Club World Cup and they don't get to the Leagues Cup, but they did beat Inter Miami in the Champions Cup semifinals, played in that final, although they got smoked in that championship game. But anyway, he says it's been 11 months of hard work. Boss Daddy 85 says, hey, Boss Daddy has a picture now. All right. Says, yeah, I met some Vancouver fans who are wearing jerseys and whatnot. They said they worked for the team. Yeah, pretty standard for MLS. Just again, to help with the spectacle. Ralph Lucarella 7698 says to counter the neutral site championship game comment, Soccer Bowl 80, New York Cosmos versus Fort Lauderdale Strikers held at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. Official attendance 50,768, and I was there. That is some memory on you, or that game has to have had a very long-lasting impact or imprint on your psyche because you remember the exact attendance. That's impressive. Sean Callahan 8080 says, I hate Mascherano, and this final was his best game by far. We'll talk about Mascherano here in a moment. Because I want to switch gears and talk about Messi. And he was named the MLS, or he was voted, the MLS Cup Final MVP. That will be separate from what we all expect, which is him to win the MLS MVP. And that announcement is supposed to come, from what we are led to believe, tomorrow, Tuesday. Messi has organized with his inner circle something called the Messi Cup, which is a youth teams tournament. This is the inaugural edition. It will be here in South Florida at the facilities for Inter Miami, where they train in Fort Lauderdale. The announcement is expected to be tomorrow. Don Garber is making a special announcement. That always means MVP or All-Star game or whatever. But in this case, it's a special player announcement coinciding with the Messi Cup. So tomorrow we will officially hear that Messi is the MLS MVP for the second consecutive season. That would be a historic accomplishment. It has never been done before that one player gets voted MLS MVP 2 years in a row, but that will be the case. I don't know if I want to say milestone because he's accomplished so much, but another nice moment to add to his career, another accolade or distinction. But in this game, he was voted the MVP. Now, I jokingly had told Jose the week before, during the game against New York City FC, that if Inter Miami won MLS Cup, I thought he would just get voted MLS MVP no matter what he did because of who he is, of course. But he was deserving. He was deserving. You could make a case for Rodrigo de Paul. Rodrigo de Paul did have a good game, and he gets the game-winning goal. But Messi was involved in all three tallies for Inter Miami. Los tres goles de Inter Miami, Messi está involucrado de una manera u otra. Some way, shape, or form, he's involved. We already touched on the first one, touched on the second one, we touched on the third one. I was leaning towards Rodrigo de Paul. I had him. They sent us a link via email, and they give you three options, plus a fourth one that says other, and you can fill in whoever you had. I had Rodrigo de Paul before the last assist. But once the last assist happened, second assist, it was Messi. It was Messi. He didn't have his best game, though. That said, he did not have his best game. Didn't look his sharpest. Wasn't overly involved. Like, he wasn't on the ball as often as you come to expect from him. I don't know if it was just a lot. It's been a long year, so he's a bit fatigued. I don't know if maybe the combination of the Vancouver Whitecaps and the way they defended, but he wasn't at his best. There were some touches that got away from him, some balls that he lost by his standard rather cheaply. It wasn't his best game, yet he still is decisive. He still is the difference maker. Still helps the team in a massive way. So it's a just reward that he's named MVP, but it's just crazy. It's mind-boggling. It's impressive that he's able to do so even if he didn't play at his best. That in the moments that he popped up, he was able to make the difference or help make the difference. Javier Mascherano, after the game, is asked about to share the soundbite with you. And he calls Messi efficient, right? That maybe he wasn't super on the ball like you might see in other matches. but when he was, still found a way to make an impact. Let's listen to Mascherano here as he talks about Messi's performance. There's also a neat little moment for Mascherano as Inter Miami's head coach and for us as viewers of the press conference.
Lo eficiente que es Leo, ¿no? Sí, era un partido complicado. ¿No? La realidad es que era un partido, no era un partido fácil. Claramente Leo quizá no tuvo tanto contacto, pero fue determinante en el partido, lo que vos estás describiendo, ¿no? La importancia del robo del segundo gol y ponerlo mano a mano. Un jugador que no necesita tener demasiado contacto con la pelota, por eso es el mejor de la historia. Y que nos ha traído hasta acá y nos ha ayudado a conseguir esto. La realidad es que estoy feliz sobre todo por él, porque sé lo que él pretendía.
Una más.
Dale.
Me comí toda la campaña.
Sí.
No, quería preguntar.
So there you have it. Mascherano gets a champagne shower thanks to some of his players who wanted to ensure it wasn't all work and no play for him during the press conference, it's a nice moment. Anytime something like that happens and it happens naturally and organically, it's always cool. It's always neat to watch. Again, the feeling afterwards in the stadium with the team, it's all positive. It's everyone's smiling and deservedly so. I pretty much paraphrased much of what he said there. He did say, Messi still, despite not touching the ball a whole lot, still able to make the difference. He was happy for him that he was able to win the MLS Cup, which I have another soundbite for you from Mascherano on Messi. It is in English, so I won't have to translate that. But I think the players that poured the champagne on Mascherano, if I'm not mistaken, were Noah Allen, because you can see the Greece flag clearly, Rocco Rios Novo, you can see the goalkeeper jersey, and I'm pretty sure it was Baltasar Rodriguez. I think that those were the three of the younger players who made sure he got his champagne shower. All right, let's listen to Mascherano in English on Messi, because this is where he says that Messi came to win MLS Cup, that he wanted to win this trophy.
I'm very happy for him. I'm very happy because of the season that he played. He was fantastic during the whole season with the numbers, but also with the commitment with the team. Because he was making a big effort during the last 2, 3, 4 games, pressing without the ball. That showed us how important it is for him to win. So I think for him I didn't talk to him that, but for him was very, very special and very important to win this trophy. He came here to win this trophy.
So Messi adds the MLS Cup to his list of cups, titles, trophies, títulos. It also not only gives him the honor of being an MLS champion, or give him the chance to be an MLS champion, it, for me, punctuates a successful first chapter of the Messi era with Inter Miami. If they had not won this game, right? I just talked about the smiles and the vibe and the atmosphere. If they had not won this game, the atmosphere would have been completely different, right? Sunken heads. Tough questions have to be asked. A missed opportunity and a body of work that over 2.5 seasons collectively had not lived up to the billing, or wouldn't have lived up to the billing, right? because they would have just had a Leagues Cup trophy and a Supporter Shield trophy had they not won this game. They do win this game, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm just trying to paint the picture of what would have happened had they not won. Because if they had not won, then 2.5 years, that's all you have to show for Messi's time here, then it's probably not enough, right? And maybe some of you would think that's unfair because they have gotten better. Absolutely, they've gotten better. They've injected the team with a lot more quality. Messi, Busquets, Alba, De Paul, Suarez, even though Suarez this year wasn't his best. So they were naturally going to get better. But this is the team in MLS. This is the superstar team. This is the star-studded, high-profile, marquee team. And that team has to win trophies. And this is not just me saying this, is not just my expectation for it. Jorge Mas said this before the game. I will share some sound bites from Jorge Mas a little bit later on. This team had to win on Saturday. And I said that in one of those shows last week. They had to win for the season to be a success. For Messi to have his crowning jewel moment, for Inter Miami to have their moment as well. They had to win. This team is expected to lift trophies. Had they not done that on Saturday, then this first part of the project might not have been looked at so successfully. That they did makes it that it's very successful. It punctuates a successful first chapter because now everything looks more complete. The MLS Cup was the centerpiece that you needed for your figurative living room if you were Inter Miami. Now everything around MLS Cup looks so much better because you got the MLS Cup, the coveted MLS Cup. You got the Leagues Cup that you won almost instantly after Messi, Jordi Alba, and Sergio Busquets arrived. You have the record-breaking Supporter Shield, which even though it's not a title, it is a trophy, and you are in the record books in Major League Soccer for the most points by a team. And you made it out of the group stage of the Club World Cup. Saturday's win was massive because it raised the tide for everything else that's been accomplished. It has made this first 2.5 years of Messi's time down here as successful from a sporting aspect, as successful on the field as it has been off the field. Because we know about the ticket sales. We know about the jerseys. We know about the attention, social media. We know all of that. What Inter Miami needed to do to match that was win. And they had won in moments during Messi's first 2.5 years. But they needed to win the domestic big one. And the domestic big one was won on Saturday. I'm genuinely happy for Inter Miami. I'm genuinely happy for the players, the staff. It has not been the easiest of years for them. They've played a lot of games. I think the most games in MLS history across all competitions. They end up scoring the most goals in MLS regular season and playoffs. I think it was 101. I think I saw that today. But yes, this year is a success, and this first half of the project is a success. I actually wrote a piece for 442. Go check it out if you haven't. Lionel Messi's MLS Cup victory punctuates successful first act with Inter Miami as a new era appears on the horizon with Barcelona reunion over. We'll talk about that more in a moment, but you can check that out at 442.com on the US version, because if you go to 442.com, you're going to initially be routed to the UK. So hit the little UK flag up top, switch it to the US, and you should be able to find it. If not, just quick Google search with that title or some of those words. All right, let's talk about Busquets, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba, because in addition to Messi not finally, because it was only 2.5 years, but in addition to Messi being named an MLS champion, no one being able to take that away from him, accomplishing that goal that he and the team set out Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets se van por la puerta ancha. They leave and retire as champs, as campeones. They get the fairy tale finish, the storybook ending to their illustrious careers. You couldn't have asked to be much better. I mean, maybe you could have asked for a Jordi Alba goal or a Sergio Busquets goal, but you couldn't have really asked for it to be much better than what it was and how it played out. Both players looked emotional, as you would expect, given that this is the end of a huge part of their lives, right? You've been playing soccer since you were a little kid, going through the ranks, thinking you have prospects to turn pro. You turn pro, national team, everything, long career. You've been doing it for most of your life, if not all of your life. And now you're saying bye. So they were tears of sadness, but also tears of happiness because they went out in the best way possible. And that's nice that they got that moment. It's nice that they were able to enjoy it in that manner, because had it not gone in that way, would have definitely put a damper on things. It would have made the whole mood even more bitter. So it's good for Inter Miami as a team, as a collective, that they were able to deliver that for those two legends, and good for the legends that they were also able to have that moment. Let's listen to Mascherano talk about sending Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba out on the highest note possible.
La felicidad de poder despedir a dos leyendas del fútbol de la mejor manera, como lo merecían, por la puerta grande. Dos jugadores que han hecho historia en este club, que lo han cambiado completamente junto con Leo y que bueno, quedarán a partir de hoy en la historia grande de este club, que es muy cortita, es muy pequeña, pero para eso vinieron, ¿no? Para cambiar el rumbo de este club. Así que contento por ello, porque sé lo que significaba irse para ellos de esta manera. Me acerqué a Jordi porque a Uzi lo tenía muy lejos. Pero bueno, al final es un poco el desahogo de todo el año, ¿no? Hoy, antes del partido, en la charla previa, lo que le dije era eso, que estos dos jugaban su último partido, pero teníamos que jugar todos como si este fuese nuestro último partido. Y creo que con defectos y virtudes lo hemos jugado, porque lo hemos jugado con el corazón, cuando ya las piernas no daban más, cuando el cansancio, con lo difícil que estaba el partido, y lo hemos ganado por eso.
Mascherano is a very key part that I do want to highlight for those that don't speak Spanish or understand. At the end, he says, we were playing for them because it was their last game, but we also had to play it collectively as a team as if it was all of our last games. He said that they won, Inter Miami won in large part just because of heart, because when the legs were gone, when they were tired, when they were fried, he said heart pushed them through. Sean Callahan, 8080, says, some would say the league is better when we lift trophies. Bruni says we couldn't have had the Barca Bros retire without one last. No, we couldn't have had the Barca Boys retire without one last championship trophy. Yeah, I think that's right. There's still so many other players to talk about. Rocco Rios Novo, he does commit his first probably real error. Maybe not his first, because he did get called a penalty kick. I thought it was a bit soft. But he commits one of the biggest errors, one of the few errors that he made in these playoffs in the final. Could have come back to haunt Inter Miami. He has an ability to parry a shot out, but he doesn't get enough behind his save attempt, and the ball hits off the post and goes in. I think that was Ali Ahmed that scored that goal. Yep. But aside from that, he stepped in pretty seamlessly in this postseason for Oscar Ustari. We spoke to Oscar Ustari on Friday, actually, and I touched on that during the Spanish episode on Friday for those of you that did not tune in. Ustari talked about his benching, accepting the decision, etc. Well, Rios Novo was solid. He was never spectacular. He had a good save here, a great save there, but he was never like spectacular. He never had to put the team on his back and be that type of goalkeeper, which speaks to how strong defensively the team was playing during these last few matches. But he was solid and he delivered when he was called upon, barring a couple of exceptions. Ian Frey, what can you say about Ian Frey, man? After everything he's been through, the injuries, certainly questions as to whether he would even have a career. He had 3 ACL injuries, then a 4th knee injury, and he's an MLS Cup champion. Perseverance, a good sign of perseverance, of talent, because the kid is talented. I don't think others in his shoes, even with all the perseverance in the world, can be the starter on a championship team after all that, unless you're also very talented. He is very talented. Your center back partnership of Falcon and Noah Allen, I think, complemented one another very well. Falcon was the more aggressive, tougher of the two. Noah Allen, the more physically gifted one, who could put out fires with his speed, his ability to put out fires, getting in to anybody that got behind the back line. Another homegrown product like Ian Frey. And he was quietly very solid, quietly very good, which for a center back, if you're quiet, means you're having normally a good game. Peluca, the leader of the back line, vocal. Jordi Alba, you could say, he's also a leader of the back line, but I feel like he's on a different wavelength given his stature. Peluca was definitely a glue guy that helped piece it all together. In the middle, Baltasar Rodriguez is an unsung hero. A lot of hard work put in. A lot of the stuff that maybe doesn't show up on the stat sheet. I have a debate with a Venezuelan colleague who's a good friend, who during the entire last 2 months or so of the season was mind blown and baffled as to why Mascherano would start Baltasar Rodriguez over Telasco Segovia. And I would tell my colleague what I'm about to tell you guys. And I think Telasco Segovia is the better of the two players, especially technically. But in terms of what the style of play that Inter Miami wanted and the way the pieces fit, Baltasar Rodriguez was the better option because he's a little spark plug, feisty, not scared to get stuck in, more athletic. So it gives you more of a two-way play, ida y vuelta, recorrido. Rodrigo de Paul found his best version after going to the concerts. No, I'm just teasing. He did find his best version here at the end when the system was simplified for him to play to his strengths. Initially, he was playing out wide as a right midfielder, while Busquets and Bright were in the middle. Well, in the 4-3-3, he was able to play more his natural position, and that freed him up, just simplified things for him. Busquets was Busquets. You could see that his legs had lost a step or two in terms of, he was never a physical or athletic beast. But you could tell from where he was when he first got here to now, he definitely took a step back in that regard, but still oozing class with the ball, still able to ping passes either on the ground in between lines or over the top on a dime. So the midfield had different characteristics that played to one another's strengths. Then in the front line, we know about the Messi magic. We know that he can win games on his own. He can do a lot with very little. Make something big happen out of something small. That's just the brilliance he has. That third goal again, Tadeo Allende's finish after Messi's chest and flick over the top is genius and technically very, very good. Toto Silvetti brought some fresh legs, some quality as well, a nose for goal, an understanding with Messi and other teammates. And what points to that is that you didn't see Jordi Alba in this last run, this last stretch of games, make as many darting runs forward and then hit that trademark low cross to Messi. You didn't see it as much. Now, Messi was the false nine, playing in a bit of a different role, but you didn't see them connect as much. And that's because now you have a player in Toto Silvetti who can help Messi in that regard from the left up in the attack. You don't necessarily need Jordi Alba bombing forward as much to give Messi an outlet on the left side of the final third. Now you have one, or you had one in this stretch. And then on the right, Tadeo Allende. Got to talk about Tadeo Allende. Breaks the record. 9 goals in the playoffs. I do think his days with Inter Miami are coming to an end. I don't think he'll be back next year on loan from Celta de Vigo. But he found his best version as well in the 4-3-3. And we will finish off with Mascherano. I think MLS put out a tweet yesterday, Sunday, of all of Allende's goals in the playoffs. And I think the first 2 are maybe the ones that are a little bit different than the rest. One of them is a header. And I think another one's like a tap in from across from the left from Jordi. But pretty much the last 7 of those 9 goals that he scored in the postseason, they all have very similar characteristics. And they coincide with the formation change, because the formation change allowed Tadeo Allende to play to his strengths, which is, if you look at the highlight package of those 9 goals, he's always streaking in on goal, or often streaking in on goal. He's forward facing. He's just running forward, galloping, using his pace, and then having the ability to finish without many defenders around him. That wasn't always the case when it was the 4-4-2 and he was coming from deeper positions, wider positions, when he was asked to combine more with his teammates. When he was further up the field and he made those sprints in behind, he found himself in one-on-one matches or one on the goalkeeper. Whereas when he was as a right midfielder, if he made those runs in behind, he was so far out wide that he then had to find a way to cross. He had to find a way to come in. He had to find a way to find Messi. Wasn't in the positions to score goals as much. Once they switched it, he became a completely different player, and one that will be long remembered in the history of Inter Miami for his contributions during this magical postseason run. There's a lot of other players we could talk about. Yannick Bright, his contributions in the midfield. I actually do have a quick little video I want to show you. I'll skip because we're starting to run a little long here. I'll skip the question and his response, but I do want you guys to see the medal up close and personal, as I asked him to show us when we were interviewing him, and he does give us a quick look. So let's take a quick glance at that MLS Cup Champions winners medal.
Congratulations! Let's see it. MLS Cup champion.
Let's
go.
2 years he took you to.
There you go. If you want to go back and look and pause and catch all the details, go for it. But yeah, nice. I should have probably gotten a little lower so you got a better look, but yeah, not my best moment, I guess. Mascherano deserves his flowers. Javier Mascherano found the right balance, the perfect balance, and the right lineup at the perfect time. Now, he had a huge hand thanks to Nashville, and that can't be ignored, and it's not to take shine away from him. It's just a fact. Nashville doesn't make that complaint. Inter Miami probably never switches to the 4-3-3, and maybe we're not here talking about Inter Miami as champions because we saw very inconsistent Inter Miami when they played in the 4-4-2. Good moments, bad moments, defensively fragile at times. Well, the 4-3-3 changed everything, and that all initiated, this is fact, this is not opinion, it all initiated thanks to Nashville's formal complaint. From there, Mascherano found the right buttons. He does get full credit for sitting Oscar Ustari, the veteran, proven goalkeeper, and bringing in Rocco Rios Novo, the younger, less seasoned, less experienced, more of an unfamiliar product in the most decisive moments of the year. So Mascherano absolutely gets credit. Him and his staff get credit for that. I don't give him as much credit for the Suarez switch because it wasn't directly his choice. But Mascherano obviously gets a passing grade and deserves his recognition as well. Look, I'm going to use this analogy. You can agree with it or not. Obviously, it is easier to coach a team that has more talent than one that doesn't have so much talent, right? If we're racing and I give you a Ferrari and everybody else is driving a Mazda or a Honda Civic or an Altima, you obviously clearly have an advantage, right? Well, Mascherano obviously has an advantage with the roster he has, the players he has at his disposal. So he's got a competitive advantage in that way. But just because you have a competitive advantage does not mean that it's guaranteed that you will win. It's easier for you to win, just like the Ferrari or the Maserati can be faster than all the other cars I mentioned. But if you don't know how to drive that thing, you can easily crash and burn. And we've seen plenty of talented teams that on paper don't win, coaches struggle because they can never find the right balance between locker room dynamics, managing the egos, gaining the respect, getting the players to buy in, keeping the players who aren't playing as well from being net negatives for the group. So Mascherano had advantages, but he knew how to manage those advantages in addition to, again, soccer heavens maybe shining down on Inter Miami and saying this is the year. This is the year. Because again, that Nashville SC complaint is big. Let's look at some comments here. Boss Daddy 85 says, we only lost 2 games out of the 16 or so that Rocco played in all year. He didn't have to do much, but we played much better when he was in net. Pedri Potter Free Speech says, of course, Andrea Llanes is absent. General Franco, ask her when you meet. Did PR7 win anything for Al Nassr? Vicious Kicks with a nice, cute little dog there for the profile pic. I think this is Vicious Kick's first comment. It says, I see a lot of MLS complaining about Inter Miami cherry picking talent from Argentina like it's some kind of advantage. No way any MLS team was sniffing out players like Silvetti. That was Inter Miami taking a risk. Icy Chai-K1M says, how good is Yannick Bright? Boss Daddy 85 says, got to give him credit for bringing in Silvetti too. Look, Silvetti, Baltasar Rodriguez, players that Mascherano helped bring in. Absolutely. Sean Callahan 8080 says Mascherano has the key to Koenigsegg while having the money to spend on a better Koenigsegg. There you go. Maybe that's a better analogy. I think we will learn more about Mascherano the deeper we get into his time and tenure. I still think there's things he has to get better with in game management. Like I don't criticize. Well, maybe that's not true. In this moment, I won't criticize his philosophy because you can have a different philosophy. Just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean, that that coach is doing something wrong. I do think that there's moments that he needs to have a better reading of the game and understanding of the game. Just in-game management moments. But we're going to learn more from him as Inter Miami defends its MLS Cup title in 2026 and looks to build on the success in 2025. Let's listen to Mascherano talk about the benchings, because naturally he didn't really take much credit for Inter Miami winning MLS Cup. He just kind of says, tenemos que acompañar, that the coaching staff just has to accompany the team and help where they can, but that the credit all goes to the players. Very Mascherano-like, which, humble of him. Don't know if I fully buy that he actually sees it that way. I do think that in his heart or in his head, he knows that a coach is important, and he definitely has had an influence in the team and the spirit and the character. But publicly, he likes to shy away and give all the credit to the team, to the players. So let's listen to Mascherano, and then we'll switch gears to start looking ahead as to what's next before we wrap up the show.
Hemos tenido la influencia de saber acompañar, hemos tenido que tomar decisiones en momentos claves, a veces muy difíciles, porque dentro de esas decisiones hay que muchas veces priorizar la razón y no el corazón, y nunca es fácil tomar una decisión con la razón y sin el corazón, pero sabíamos que era lo mejor quizás para el equipo.
He does add there, one part I didn't paraphrase or translate, is that sometimes it's difficult to make decisions with, how do I translate this? With reasoning as opposed to with your heart, with logic instead of your heart. But sometimes that has to be made because it's what's best for the team. Clearly, he's referring indirectly to Rocco Rios over Oscar Ustari, decision made late in the regular season. And then Toto Silvetti over Luis Suarez, which again happened in the playoffs. Jean-Marie Francois, 1584, says Messi is the king of football, soccer ball emoji, 2 Argentine flag emojis. Boss Daddy 85 adds, I wonder if he wanted to make changes sooner but wasn't able or allowed to. I agree with that thought process. I think that he probably wanted to make the changes earlier, but he couldn't. I don't think he was allowed to. Now, that's before Pedri Potter comes in here or Messi fans come in here and start saying random things. That's not inside information. That's my supposition. That's my sensation. Just my opinion. Mi opinión, mi sensación, mi suposición. Yo creo que a Mascherano no lo dejaron sacarlo a Suárez del 11 inicial por mucha parte del año. Al final, quizás, con el ejemplo de cómo jugaron contra Nashville en el último partido de esa serie, quizás ahí cambiaron de opiniones la gente que se tenía que cambiar de opiniones. But I agree with Boss Daddy. I think he wasn't allowed to take him out of the lineup until that Nashville game, until he had proof of concept or a clear example where he could show whoever made that decision or whoever helps call the shots above him, above his pay grade, like, hey, this is how we can play. This will give us our best chance of winning MLS Cup. I think that again, so the position, I think that is, there's some truth to that, or there's something along those lines happened behind the scenes. All right, so Inter Miami wins MLS Cup, but things don't end here. The Messi era will continue. We are entering phase 2 of Lionel Messi's stint in South Florida, and it will look different. We might hear some roster decisions as early as this week. But this next chapter, this next phase will look different, as I alluded to and mentioned earlier, because Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets, they're not here anymore, or they won't be here anymore. So that initial project of the Barcelona reunion, That part is pretty much gone. Luis Suarez is a question mark. Will he return in 2026? I know a lot of you say absolutely hell no. No lo traigan de vuelta. Well, I asked Jorge Mas about Luis Suarez in an hour and a half or so before the final on Saturday. A handful of us local reporters were able to speak to him and David Beckham. Quick interview, about 10, 15 minutes or so. Talked about a bunch of different things. I have some sound bites I want to share. We're going to go over an hour and 10 minutes, so I'm just going to give myself the early yellow card right now because we're definitely going over. I do want to talk about Jorge Mas in general because I do want to make a point or share an opinion I have. I did it on Twitter today, but I would like to also do it here on the show. But let's listen to Jorge Mas's response on Luis Suarez's future because he makes it clear that he's open and welcome to having El Uruguayo, El Pistolero, the Uruguayan back next year. But it's up to Suarez to make the decision. And then it's a matter of figuring out the numbers for how to bring him back. And before I hit play here, I don't think Suarez is coming back. That's just my read on things. I don't think he's coming back. Because the way Jorge Mas talks about it, it's as if he wants to publicly give Suarez a vote of confidence, maybe with the realization that he's not coming back. But that's just my read into it. I'll let you guys surmise or take away from it what you will. Luis Suarez.
Sobre Luis Suárez. Luis es una leyenda del fútbol, Luis es uno de los mejores 9 de no solamente esta generación, pero de todos los tiempos. Luis va a tener que tomar una decisión cuando termine la temporada, que será mañana. En términos del club, quiero mencionar esto porque he leído muchísimo de Luis, etcétera, y lo digo en este contexto. Y si fuésemos al principio del año y te pusieran un papel, un 9 o un centro delantero que juega más de 4.000 minutos, anota 16 a 18 goles, otros 16 o 18 asistencias, todos nosotros que estamos aquí firmaríamos una nota para tener un centro de eso. Luis se merece tomar la decisión de poder seguir por la puerta ancha y gorda y celebrado como debe ser en términos del club, y si Luis decide seguir un año por el club estaría bien. A mí me encantaría ver a Luis seguir. Obviamente después las conversaciones entran cómo vuelve Luis Suárez, pero eso obviamente es algo que determinaría el técnico, determinaría a Luis, pero la decisión queda por él.
So yeah, the decision will be made by Luis and the coach. Suarez has a decision to make. Clearly sounds like Suarez can either obviously renew, go to Uruguay, which I think he's being linked with Nacional. I hope that's right, because otherwise the Uruguayans are going to come kill me. Nacional, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I got my Uruguayan clubs right. I didn't want to say Peñarol. I didn't want to get it wrong, but Nacional. Or Luis Suarez could just opt to retire, right? He could decide to retire. Maybe. It's possible, I guess. We'll see which way he goes. If I had to guess at this point, I don't know, man. I honestly think I think it's pretty even odds across the board. He could come back, could leave, could retire. We'll see. If I had to guess, I'd say the Messi pull is strong, but the money won't be. Maybe. Dang, I don't know. I would lean towards him. Retiring. There you go. Retiring. Calling it a career. Took me a while to think about that. I wanted to make sure I said what I actually thought. It took me a while to assess everything. If Suarez doesn't come back, or whether he comes back or not, doubt he would be a starter. But you still have to find replacements for Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets in the starting lineup. How do you go about that? Well, Jorge Mas didn't name names, but he did say that reinforcements are on the way. And not only have they been identified, there's already verbal agreements in place.
Jorge, la afición puede esperar una gran incorporación, una estrella para la próxima temporada.
Bueno, ya nosotros nos estamos preparando para el 26. Obviamente tenemos la ventana al invierno, tenemos dos de los mejores jugadores de esta generación retirándose en Jordi Alba y Sergio Busquets. Nosotros ya tenemos reemplazos, no solamente en mente, pero ya palabreados. Tenemos la oportunidad con un slot de DP de poder añadir a alguien. Y la meta de este club para el 26 va a ser ganar la Champions y obviamente quiero ir con un 11 súper cargado. Gracias.
That last part, he says, quiero ir con un 11 super cargado. He wants to go with a stacked starting lineup for next year. It says they do have one DP slot available. Obviously, Messi occupies one. Although it's not official, we know it will be official. Rodrigo de Paul will return. He will have that loan option or the buy option from the loan from Atletico Madrid triggered, so he will be a DP because the transfer fee is paid. You need one more, or you can have one more. Where do they go? What position do they do? We can talk about it more in the offseason. Do they look for a winger to replace Tadeo Allende, a goal-scoring winger? Do they look for more of a number 9? And maybe go back to a 4-4-2, especially if we can get a more athletic, younger, more energetic, dynamic number 9. I'll leave that for you guys to discuss, think about, and we can debate over it and analyze it later in the off season. But they do have a DP spot available. Bruni says, if El Pistolero comes back for real cheap as a reserve, more like a coach than a player, then why not? Does he want that though? Does he want to do that? Does he? Because he did an interview and he sat before the final, and it sounded like he was, like he said he felt like he could play more than just the few minutes he was given. And if that's the role, right, where he's just a spot starter or un variante desde la banca, an option off the bench for someone of his stature, of his name, is he willing to accept that for a full season? I don't know. The grind and go to training and all that, I'd imagine he'd want to be a starter somewhere. And he can be a starter somewhere. Absolutely. Maybe not in MLS, but he can definitely start somewhere. Probably in Uruguay. All right. One more soundbite from Jorge Mas. And this is the one that I'm going to harp on before we wrap up. Because Inter Miami fans, if you feel lucky that you have Lionel Messi on your team, my opinion is you should also feel very lucky that you have Jorge Mas helping lead the way. Because yes, Jorge Mas, his brother Jose Mas, and David Beckham are the 3 co-owners, but Jorge Mas is obviously one of the bigger money guys with him and his brother, and he's also the more publicly involved one, and maybe just in general out of the 3, the most involved. And Inter Miami wouldn't be MLS Cup champions right now without Jorge Mas and his winning mentality, his competitive nature, his desire to strive for more. No se conforma. Jorge Mas no se conforma. He doesn't conform. He's not a conformist. Conformista, as they say in a lot of South America with regards to certain players. Because look, Inter Miami just won MLS Cup. It would be easy for an owner who has dished out a crap load of money into a roster, into a new stadium that will be Miami Freedom Park that opens next year, to say, you know what, I don't need to spend as much now. Let's take a step back. Let's take a step back, and we should still be competitive and see where that gets us. He's the complete opposite. He's pushing for more. He wants more. I'm going to share the soundbite with you. It's in English. He says outright, we want more. This isn't it. And that hunger, that competitive spirit and nature is a tremendous quality to have, obviously, in professional sports, where you're constantly having to prove yourself, constantly having to show that you're the best. That's fantastic to have as an owner. It's a fantastic characteristic for anything else you could say about him. If you have your criticisms about him, if you say, maybe he didn't make good on some promises to the public that he said he was going to do. Maybe he sounds like a car salesman to some of you when he tries to exaggerate on selling a point. Maybe I'm just throwing random stuff out there. Maybe you feel he doesn't know a lot about soccer because he's Cuban, cubano, no, quizás no sabe tanto de fútbol. Whatever you could have to say about him, you should feel lucky that he is the one leading the way. Because obviously he brings Messi, and not just Messi, he brings a star-studded cast with him for this first chapter. Not only does he help bring Inter Miami, and now he's going to bring another stadium. So you'll have two stadiums before some teams even have one soccer-specific stadium, New England Revolution. He's still striving for more. And for a lot of MLS fans, a lot of fans of other teams, supporters of other teams, you guys are the envy of them. Because a lot of them wish they could have an owner like Jorge Mas, who's present, who's involved, who's pushing the envelope in terms of trying to get Major League Soccer to a higher level, in terms of investing money into the roster. Not every team has that type of owner. Most teams, maybe, I'd say, don't have that type of owner. Some teams have owners that are complacent, that are okay with doing the bare minimum so long as they continue to get a piece of the MLS pie because there's no promotion and relegation. They will be able, based on the current model, to continue to collect their portion of revenue, etc., etc. Jorge Mas could easily say, I'm taking my foot off the gas. We won MLS Cup. I don't need to keep investing into the same level. And he's still doing it. Still doing it. He still wants to do it. Maybe the day will come where he doesn't. But right now, he still wants to. So you guys should enjoy that and I think appreciate it because it should not be something that goes overlooked. It is important. It is important. And it does trickle down from the top to the bottom. Let's listen to Jorge Mas talk about the goals for 2026. He said it in Spanish. I didn't translate that. But that's because he says it here in English. They are gunning. They already know they're gunning. Their main goal for 2026 is the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They want that trophy to add to the cabinet, but also to give them qualification to the next Club World Cup in, I think, 2029. Listen here to Jorge Mas.
Jorge, la afición puede esperar una gran incorporación estrella para la próxima temporada.
Bueno, ya nos.
Sorry, clicked the wrong soundbite.
We're going to continue growing the club. We're going to continue breaking barriers. We want more, right? We want more. And once today's done and tomorrow comes about, the goal then is champions. Because the team's goal next year is going to win the Champions League. We want to qualify for the Club World Cup in 2029. So not today, but that's front of mind for tomorrow. So we're ambitious. We're going to continue pushing. I want to continue elevating the league and making this one of the best leagues in the world. There's a lot of work to do there, but we're going to continue pushing.
That's the word. Ambitious. I like that. But no es conformista. It's not conformist. Like that word gets used a lot. I don't know if I hear it that much in Spanish here, but I definitely hear it a lot talking about other players and their mentalities and different levels of soccer and football. Because there's players that hit a certain level and they get a certain amount of money, a certain amount of attention, and then they just conform with that. They're okay with that. They don't continue to do the same things. And sometimes it's just psychological and it's subconscious, right? you hit a certain level and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Now I have all these luxuries and I guess Messi would be an example of the opposite, right? Messi, for all his success and all his increased fame and all the increased trophies, Messi's an example of what Jorge Mas is off the field because he continues to push for more, right? He's won it all and he's still looking to find other things to win. That is a great quality to have. Great quality to have. Rico de la Vega 4511 says Mas y Mas. Boss Daddy 85 says we are more lucky to have Jorge Mas, so none of this would be possible to begin with. Willie says Vamos Campeón, and there's a $1.99 there. I don't know if that means he donated $1.99, but if he did, thank you. But I'm not familiar with how that works, so interesting. Random number 4544 says, ¿van a comprar más jugadores? Sí, van a comprar más jugadores. Vienen otros jugadores, vienen reemplazantes para Alba, para Busquets. Va a ser un proyecto un poco distinto de aquí en adelante. Willie says it's true that Suarez might not come back. Yes, that is true. We just touched on it a few minutes ago, but yes, he may not come back. He could. Jorge Mas said he's open to having him back, but we'll see what decision the Uruguayan takes because, like I said before, maybe he doesn't want to be a backup for an entire season. Ralph Lucarella 7698 says, Planeta de Fútbol says Suarez is told Nacional thanks, but no thanks. Boss Dad 85 adds Beckham couldn't have found a better partner. Amy Rodriguez -E8R says, who are the new signings? There's a lot of names being floated out there. I'll leave it for the offseason when we have maybe a little bit less to talk about where we can dive into the actual names. I'm sure you've seen some of them, Reguilón, Timo Werner, although I highly doubt that one. Neymar is a name that has been floated around this year. We'll see. We'll see which way they go. I think that does it for now because I've gone over. I already gave myself a yellow card, so I think we will leave it there. Almost an hour and a half of the show. Talked almost every possible angle of MLS Cup Final that I could think of. I shared with you a lot of sound bites. There was a lot more too from other players that spoke, but yeah, otherwise we'd be here for 2 hours. Tomorrow, Lionel Messi is expected to be named MLS MVP, so keep your eyes and ears out for that. Check out Franco Panizo on Twitter for coverage of the announcement. Although we might not be able to take footage, something like that. Just read it. Just got an email. But anyway, there's more Inter Miami news to come. For now, just bask in the glory of being MLS Cup champions. You can take it for granted because you think it might happen again and again because Messi's here. And you expect this Inter Miami team to continue to contend for trophies and titles while he's here. Clearly, they're already gunning for Champions Cup in 2026. But you might not always get back. Sometimes it takes a long time to get back. Sometimes it takes decades to get back to an MLS Cup or a championship game. So enjoy this one. Really enjoy it. I know some people cried and had tears coming out of their eyes. I can't say that it was easy, but it only took, I can't say only either because for some people it's a long time. It took 6 seasons. And for a lot of other teams, it's taken a lot longer. For some teams, it still hasn't happened. Like the New York Red Bulls still haven't won an MLS Cup, and they're an MLS original, formerly the New York Metro Stars. So enjoy it. Really, really cherish this moment because it's not every day that you and your team are MLS champions. But that is the case for Inter Miami. That is the case for Lionel Messi. And that is the case for you guys, the Inter Miami faithful. We will leave it there for now. Might be back later in the week Messi will get announced tomorrow, depending on what happens or what is said. Maybe we have a show tomorrow, a quick one, to talk about it, reflect on his season. If not, then maybe later in the week when we hear some player movement, maybe then we can come back. I don't know. Don't have all the details figured out yet, but I will keep you guys abreast to the details on social media. All right, so that will do it for me. Thank you for joining me once again here on this Monday edition of Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I am Franco Panizo. I hope you have a great night celebrating, cherishing, enjoying being MLS Cup champions.